Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Movie Crusaders. My name's Sean Wasserkrug, and today we're going to be reviewing the much-awaited return to movie theaters for the MCU, Black Widow. Now, it's been 2 years since we've had an MCU film release in theaters, last one being Spider-Man Far From Home. We've had a lot of MCU in the meantime with WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, and Loki, but this is the first time in 2 years since we've had the abilities to go to the theaters to see the MCU back on the big screen. For me personally, though, I did not go see it in theaters. I actually saw it on Disney+. But we are talking about the movie that really should have been made years ago. This movie should have came out probably 4 or 5 years back, but we are finally seeing the first solo film, and only probably solo film, of Black Widow. Scarlett Johansson has done a fantastic job with this character over the years, debuting in Iron Man 2 to her untimely demise in Endgame. So this film is kind of one of those, it's like, oh, we always meant to do this, but now that Black Widow's gone in the MCU, let's go ahead and release a solo film. Too little, too late, but nonetheless, this is definitely a film that a lot of people have been waiting for and have been excited to see, kind of like almost like a female James Bond-esque kind of film. Black Widow does take place right after the events of Captain America Civil War. So the movie does open up with her on the run from Thunderbolt Ross. Actually, the movie opens up to her as a child, I think back in, I think it was 1995, where we get kind of a MCU's version of the FX TV show The Americans, which is a fantastic TV show. If you guys have never seen it, check it out, where we find out that Natasha was part of a Russian spy family that was basically being held in Ohio. They escape, and thus the story of Black Widow starts to unfold. And then we get to basically the events of Civil War, where she's run away from Thunderbolt Ross. The story of Black Widow, a lot of people could say, and I kind of inclined to agree with it, this is basically Black Widow's version of Winter Soldier. It's very spy espionage, not a whole lot of like crazy bombastic MCU stuff that we normally get. So it's a much more grounded MCU film, which for Black Widow, that makes sense. We need a more grounded film here and there, especially since we're going to be going to, space and over the top with the magic with Doctor Strange and WandaVision. So having a film led by Scarlett Johansson where it's more, I would say, realistic in a sense, because of Black Widow. She's not a superhero. She's a very, very trained, very well trained assassin. And her finding her I guess her it's not her real family, but her family that she stayed with in Ohio, being Yelena Belova, Belova. I probably said that wrong. Yelena, I'm just gonna call her Yelena, played by, to me, the always fantastic Florence Pugh. Melina, played by the also always amazing Rachel Weisz, and then Alexei, once again, played by the also always awesome David Harbour. Well, unless he's Hellboy. But these four characters all basically coming together again to try and take down the leader of the Black Widows, the leader of the Red Room, Dreykov, played by Ray Winstone. The main thing that really works in this film is the story of basically Black Widow and Yelena, basically the story of these four family members. It's a very tragic story. There's definitely some rough moments in the film where they have to kind of go over and rehash some of the abuse and some of the rough stuff they had during their childhood, especially Natasha and Yelena. And it's a darker MCU film because of it. And I say that in the best way possible. Yes, there is some laughs, especially from Florence Pugh and David Harbour, but it is a darker, more kind of traumatizing story to kind of go through as you're learning more and more about Natasha, which we got a good chunk of that story when we saw Avengers Age of Ultron, when she was kind of going back in time and with Scarlet Witch kind of tricking her into flashbacking. But this is more kind of going into greater detail about her life before she was a Black Widow, the childhood with her and Yelena and Melina and Alexei, to basically her kind of coming back and righting the wrongs of her past, or how we've seen her say in multiple films, trying to get rid of the red on her ledger. And a lot of this is taking down the Black Widow program. In terms of the cast, like I said, Florence Pugh is fantastic as Yelena. She's got great deadpan humor that meshes really, really well with Scarlett Johansson's humor. Rachel Weisz, I wish she would have gotten a little bit more to do in the film, but when she is on screen, she does a great job nonetheless. And David Harbour is great as Alexei, aka the Red Guardian. He's always a joy whenever he's on screen. He's definitely the main comedy of this. Once again, also kind of wish we had a little bit more of him on screen. The action in the film is really solid as well. It's the main kind of issue you're going to run with Black Widow is that it's really good as a family drama about these four individuals. And then they have to kind of try to force the action in there. And it kind of feels a little disjointed at certain times because the action, while good, while shot very, very well, it almost kind of takes it away from the story that we're telling. Like, there are times where we're getting some good lengthy action sequences, which are shot very well. But I almost kind of needed more story, more development between these four family members. And it's one of those things where I get it. It's an MCU film. We have to have action set pieces. We have to have these big moments of fighting. But I almost wish it kind of got pulled back a little bit so we could have gotten more of this family, because we don't get them all four together for very, very long. It's usually Natasha and Yelena, or then Natasha and Yelena and Alexei. Melina kind of joins the group later in the film, and you don't get a whole lot of time with all four of them. And I wish we would have gotten a little bit more of that. The movie is around 2 hours and 15 minutes. I actually would have been okay with probably 15 more minutes, maybe even 20 more minutes, to just allow for more of that kind of story between these four individuals, because that was the most intriguing part of the film. Ray Winstone's Dreykov is a by the numbers MCU villain. He's not bad, but he's not memorable or great either. The big problem that I also have is with Taskmaster. Taskmaster is has a fantastic opening scene. When we get to see Taskmaster in their first moments against Natasha, it is shot great, and Taskmaster is definitely given a holy crap, how are they going to defeat this foe kind of stigma. But it runs down the same path that we got with Ghost in Ant-Man and the Wasp, where we've built up this villain to be so powerful that it makes you wonder how the heroes in this film, in this case, Natasha, Yelena, Melina, and Alexei, are going to be able to defeat this kind of character, because Taskmaster is pretty much almost near unstoppable in a sense, based off of the information you find out about Taskmaster in the film. But just like Ghost and Ant-Man and the Wasp, they find a way to basically saddle that character, so we don't ever get to have Taskmaster used to the fullest of their potential, just like Ghost and Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is really a big disappointment, because you built up this danger in Taskmaster, and while we got to see some of it, it's great, but you're waiting for this inevitable big blowout by the end of the film with this fight, and it just kind of doesn't really happen because of the way the storyline goes. And it just is, once again, another attempt where the MCU focuses more on the lesser powerful or lesser popular villain, in this case Dreykov, and kind of saddles the cooler, more exciting villain in Taskmaster to a side piece kind of character, or does something to that character to kind of take them out of the game, so we don't really get that inevitable big battle. Winter Soldier did that as well with Robert Redford's character, and then the rest of S.H.I.E.L.D./Hydra, but Winter Soldier still got to have his big moments with Captain America in that film, whereas in this one, Taskmaster really kind of gets pushed to the side. And at one point, I was just wondering, are we ever going to get back to Taskmaster? Because I feel like this character is too big, at least the way the film had built out him so far, to be utilized. And the answer is not really. And that's kind of a bummer overall, which is probably one of the reasons why I preferred the dramatic storyline of the 4 family members compared to the action. Because yes, when we get to the final third act action scene, it does feel very MCU, especially along the lines of like the Avengers, the first film. I've seen all this stuff before. It looks great, and Black Widow does a fantastic job, especially Yelena. But I feel like I've seen this kind of third act finale previously, and I kind of wish we could have gotten more with everything that we got, especially knowing that we already know the outcome of this. We already know where Natasha's going to go in this film. We already know her outcome. So it was one of those things where I felt like there was some moments that got kind of thrown by the wayside because of action. We know, especially based off of what we've seen in the films already, after this movie, we're probably not going to see Natasha with Yelena, Melina, and Alexei again. And there's some dialogue, there's some character development between these 4 that really probably should have gotten some more camera time, or they should have gotten some more scenes or some dialogue put in between them as an inevitable kind of goodbye, because we know that Natasha doesn't make it past Endgame. In terms of post-credit scenes, there is no mid-credit scene, but there is a post-credit scene that definitely will continue the story further with these individuals. But it's one of those things where Black Widow is a very solid MCU film. It is not a bad film by any means. It is fun to watch. The action is good. The story of Natasha and the Yelena, Melina, and Alexei are also incredibly well done. I wish we would have gotten more time with all 4 of them together, kind of had some hashing out moments with them talking and kind of going through everything, which I get it. It's an MCU film. They want the action. They want the big set pieces, stuff like that. But I would have preferred more of a grounded story where these characters really got to kind of talk, shit out. And given Natasha, while she does get closure by the end of the film, kind of more closure for all 4 of the characters, because we know inevitably what's going to happen with Natasha by Endgame. Overall, though, Black Widow, as I said, is a very solid MCU film. I'd say it's probably right there and around the middle of the MCU rankings, but Scarlett Johansson does a great job as Natasha. I feel like she knows how to be Black Widow now. There's nothing new that she's going to be able to bring to the role except for more of a dramatic piece, which she does really well in this film. I just wish we would have gotten more out of it, but nonetheless, it's a comic book film. You got to have action. Like I said, Florence Pugh does a fantastic job. I feel like going forward, I'm excited to see what we get with her character from now on going forward. I hope we get some more of Rachel Weisz's Melina and David Harbour's Alexei as well. But yeah, definitely recommend checking it out. Black Widow obviously is in theaters, or you can spend $30 and see it on Disney Plus and watch it as many times as you want. But definitely worth checking out for the MCU fans and kind of taking it a step further to see where we're going to go in the future with future films. And Scarlett Johansson does a great job of putting a bookend on a very well done character in Natasha Romanoff. I just wish we got a little bit more for her to do on the acting side of things, because we've seen plenty of her on the action side. But you are going to enjoy the humor overall, especially between Yelena and Natasha. They have great humor together. And like I said, David Harbour is great in the humor department as well. Going my overall score, I'm going to give Black Widow an 83%. Like I said, very, very solid film. Great acting all around. No real negatives in the acting. I just wish that the action kind of took more of a backseat and we would have gotten a little bit more of the dramatic family side that we inevitably we did get. I just wanted more of it. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you guys did, go and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And of course, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next, we have Fear Street Part 2, 1978, that just came out on Netflix today, so be on the lookout for that review. And then, of course, next Friday, 5 more movies Brian Michaels and I will be talking about for the Weekend Crusaders. We had our episode drop today as well, so feel free to check that out. And until next time, in case I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.